It is a clean, untarnished birth. It is so beautiful and so clean and free of guilt that nothing but happiness is here. I'll give you a moment in which to let yourself rest in this beautiful instant, clean and free of guilt and fear.
Thank you, Barbara. How to study A Course in Miracles. That's the topic for today. Start with an easy one, right? How to study A Course in Miracles. It's perfect because some of us have studied and some of us haven't. And you just said somebody's kind of preparing for the next talk. Like preparing to understand. Mm-hmm. It does. I don't think it really works that way. Mm-hmm. You can come into this course from any angle, any time, any page, any chapter. It's kind of like a holographic book, from our experience anyway. You don't have to start at the beginning, and you don't have to go all the way through and be incredibly diligent, because we all did that, and then we stopped at chapter 3 or 4, right? Because we were so diligent. And so I had an amazing class with the what's called the Miracle Ministry Academy, where I'm training right now to properly be able to teach this. So I'm in training myself. I'm the substitute teacher, right? Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely extraordinary how advanced the teaching has become over the years. It's like 50 years old now, this course. And the group of individuals who created this marvelous tome are called the Circle of Atonement. So this is the book that we use. As you can see, it's very hefty. And Robert Perry is the main individual behind all of this. He's been working on this course for at least 40 years. At least 40 years. And he said something at the beginning of our lesson on Saturday that totally blew me away. After 40 years, he said, nobody understands this course. And that's a pretty amazing thing for an individual to say who's been researching, seriously studying this course for 40 years. I can't think of any other discipline, any science, anybody who would actually have the humility to say that after 40 years. Still don't get it. He said it is such a profound teaching that probably one life isn't enough, and that's a great way to put you off from studying, right? It's going to take you another 3 years, 3 lives. So he said that, and I went, wow, this guy is amazing. Not only did he do all of this work, he's constantly with the Circle of Atonement, providing us with ways to study this course that haven't existed until now. Really professional, really deep, really serious, dedicated people, an amazing crew. And I'm just so proud to be part of them, because until then I was just dabbling away and starting and stopping and not really getting it. And I was sure that I could figure it out on my own, like I can get this, right? And I think a lot of us are like that. We really believe that we have the ability to comprehend it on our own, but in fact, I don't think that's true anymore. I think you really need to have people to help to at least begin to understand this course. So he was teaching us how to study A Course in Miracles on Saturday. And it was an absolutely remarkable lesson. And I asked his permission yesterday to share it. Like, I was so impressed. Anybody can listen to this and enter the course at their own speed and their own time. And the first thing he said when we began the class was, there is a disconcertingly wide gap between how A Course in Miracles is generally understood and what it actually says. So if we just spend a minute with that, right? Think of all the books that you've studied in your life and all the systems you may have researched. But is there really a gap between what it's saying and how you're understanding it? Right? And it's certainly true in my case. Since I started studying with this group, I didn't get it at all. I completely misunderstood that section. I wanted to figure it out in my own head. So that's how he started. And then he made that comment that nobody completely understands this course, which was the most shocking of all comments. And I went, okay, why is he telling us that? Much of what is said about the course by other people is at odds with the text. That's the next thing. And I'll get to some examples of how what other people say about the course, maybe you heard about it from somebody else and they maybe said the course is about this and that's what it's about and it's nicely boxed up in there and you can take it or leave it, right? No. It's at odds with what is said and what the course actually says. And the reason is because people are not engaging in careful, open-minded study or being truly receptive to the material. We're not really giving it our full attention, is what he's saying, and going over it. We're going to do an exercise later to actually show us that. So how do we normally read books? He told us that we read by projection. Right? We read by projection. I don't know about you folks, but I've read a lot of books in my life because I'm a writer. And you have to read a lot of books if you're going to write. And so I've read a lot of books. I started reading when I was 3 because my sister was a librarian. And there's not a day gone by I haven't read a book. My wife will confirm it. I'm always reading books, right? So what does it mean to read by projection? It means that you read this book here and you're projecting on this book what you read from 50 other books before. And you've got all of this stacked up knowledge or ideas in your head and you kind of overlay them on the text that you're reading now, inevitably, because we want to understand, right? We want to have some kind of a place to hook into. But Robert said that's not going to help you reading this course at all. It's going to be a big barrier, in fact. So we are projecting our own grid here onto the text, and we miss the parts that contradict what we've already read. So you'll come up with something in the Course in Miracles, and you'll kind of check it with all of your previous knowledge and your books, and then you go, that can't be right? Because everything else says different. It can't be right. And this is where you come up against the real barrier that makes people kind of, I think, shy away from the course, because it's kind of like either this is true, right? Either this is true, like as it is supposed to be a true book with knowledge, with real knowledge that really helps individuals, or it's not. It's not like it can be true in certain areas and then a bit flaky in others. It's the kind of book that's all or nothing. And no, I don't ask any of you to accept that at the beginning. There's no way you can accept that. It just sounds like nonsense. But after you've been with it for a while, you start to get the feeling, whoa, maybe this is actually true. And the number one question that people ask about the Course in Miracles is, even if they've been doing it for 30 years, is it really true? Because if it is, well, that changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes everything if it's true. So that's the first thing that we come up against. Like, how can you actually have a book that's true? It's a good question. So we're projecting our previous understanding and we're seeking answers from the book. Robert actually said, if you ask a student about something in the course, they'll go like this. Right? I thought it was brilliant. Well, what does the course say about the holy relationship, for example. That's a word that comes up in the book. What does it say about the holy relationship? And people go like, which means I'm not going to actually check what it says about the holy relationship in the actual book. I'm going to go up here and think, well, it means according to such and such a teacher, and when I read it 5 years ago, that's what it means. But it doesn't mean that. So it kind of forces us to get like, wait a minute, I better go back in and check. So everything I'm saying today, I'm recording because Julie's going to hear it. I mean, absolutely sure of it. Like, she's going to go, I don't know about that one. Did you check? Right? And that's how we're being taught. We're being taught to be, in a sense, really scientific about it. Is the evidence there in the book, or did you just make this up in your head now? So, and the reason that we're doing this is we kind of want to get confirmation of stuff that we already think that we know, right? I must know this. Surely I know this. Yeah, of course I do. But actually, we don't. Otherwise, we wouldn't need this course to guide us. So it challenges our assumptions. Tell me one assumption about this course that is very common. Everybody says it.
An assumption.
Something that you're sure is true about this course when you're studying it. Like people say all the time, oh, the Course in Miracles, it's a self-study course.
Right.
I believed that for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a self-study course, means you have to sit down by yourself and you have to get really serious and you have to study it, which is true to some extent. But, okay, where does it say in this book it's a self-study course becomes your question, and then you go through the entire book and you can do it using apps that we have here. You can actually look up self-study course, and there's nowhere that it actually says that you have to sit here and do it by yourself. Nowhere. So that's a huge assumption that has become very popular around the world. It's a self-study course. You don't have any kind of educational system around it. Another expression that's very common in this course is, a miracle is a shift in perception. So, okay, yeah, that's what it says in the Course in Miracles. A miracle equals a shift in perception. I've read that, I remember it, I'm pretty sure about that. And then you go and you check it, nowhere it actually says that. So again, we're realizing that we've assumed something that wasn't true. The Course is non-dual. A lot of people compare it with, other traditions, other religions. Oh, it's the same as what they call non-dual. It's like Hindu beliefs in Advaita. No, that's nowhere in the Course either.
What does that even mean,
non-dual.
Dual.
Dual.
Oh, okay.
It's dual.
Okay.
I'm interpreter.
She can interpret the accent as jewel. Like a jewel carriageway. You get it? A dual carriageway. I was like, nah, that's not where I'm driving today. So then, and imagine that there's 20 people online listening to Robert and his partner Emily, who are running this entire project, really being very careful about how they're teaching us, because they expect us to take this course to the world in a way that is not going to be mistaken. So, I feel that we're very lucky to have such guidance with us. So then he comes up with the next really shocking statement, because I can ask any one of you who's done it. Where did this course come from? What's the common understanding of where it came from? Do you know?
Some woman got some download.
Yeah. Some woman got some download. That's exactly how it happened. But where did she download it from? Yeah. Well, specifically Jesus, right? And a lot of people these days just don't want to go there. Like, don't mention the J guy. Right? That's going to put us in a really bad light. Right? But it's clearly, from the beginning to the end, it's made absolutely obvious that this came from Jesus. If you read it, you'll figure it out sooner or later. You don't have to believe it. And Helen said that, and everybody else confirmed it who came along later. Yes, actually the scribe was the woman, but the download came from, and you can think of that as the historical Jesus or not, it doesn't make any difference, but it's like that level of intelligence is behind it is what we find when we really get into it. It's like astonishingly different from everything else that I've ever read, and I hope that we can get to that place together and to think that it's really astonishing. So he said that this projection thing that we've got going with the Course in Miracles is actually a block. It's a defense against learning from Jesus. It's a defense mechanism because we don't want to go there. Why? Because this entire course I think it has a really cool purpose, which is to dismantle the ego completely. Just think about that one.
Good luck with that.
Exactly. To dismantle the ego, it is not impossible. No. I don't believe it's impossible. I believe it's incredibly difficult. But I don't believe it's impossible. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it, right? I wouldn't be doing it. If I didn't think that it was possible to get beyond the ego into our true nature, then I wouldn't go near it.
Can I just ask, what is the ego? Like your definition of it?
That's a really good one. Not my definition. No,
Or the
no,
Course's
not my definition.
definition?
Okay. I'm going to be very careful.
Good job, Doc.
Okay.
Check it.
I'm not going to tell you what I think about the ego, because that's my ego. Right? So we got this cool little app in here, which is amazing. I mean, the time that we live in, this is just like ACM. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to input here.
In this key search.
Key search. Ego.
I'm gonna have about 2,000.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of references. Can you find maybe definition? Or you look it up.
I don't have my glasses on. Okay.
It's not like we learned from Freud or Jung or any of those guys. Nothing like it at all. And this is my understanding until she gets it from there, right? I was walking down the hill today with the doggy, and I thought, what's a good way to talk about the ego if somebody was to ask you that's, just from your understanding? It's a bit like the Matrix. It's a bit like the Matrix, the movie, right? The Matrix. All right, did you get it? It's a bit like the Matrix. It's enormously complex. And when you're stuck in it, you have no idea that you're in it, right? So that would be my definition of the ego. It's like the Matrix, but Masa?
It doesn't have a clear, there's so many references.
Yeah.
But, we can discuss what we've been discussing in class, right, Barbara?
Mm-hmm.
About what we think the ego is.
Didn't they address it in that 60-minute
Yeah.
video?
Yeah.
It's in the 60-minute video, yeah. But that is just like a super duper question. What is it? And my answer would be, studying this book is probably the most efficient way to figure out what it actually is, how it operates, and how it infiltrates.
This one's not bad.
Okay, here we go. Workbook. This is from the workbook. The ego is idolatry.
Adultery?
No,
Idolatry.
no, my dear.
Adultery means
No, the ego is idolatry, the worshipping of idols.
I don't.
The ego is idolatry, the sign of limited and separated self, born in a body, doomed to suffer and to end its life in death. It is the will that sees the will of God as enemy and takes a form in which it is denied. The ego is the proof that strength is weak and love is fearful. Life is really death, and what opposes God alone is true. That's from the workbook. Thank you.
That's so.
It's
It's not of God.
It's an entire project figuring this out, and that's what makes this book really great. It shows you how the ego operates and how amazingly nefarious the act of the ego is. So we'll carry on, because we've got to have some idea of how to read this and how to get the information in a way that is close to how it was written. And that's what he was teaching us on Saturday. So let's make some assumptions before we start the actual reading exercise. Let's just make a few assumptions. They could be right. Let's see how it works. Let's assume that there are clues in this text. For example, this one that we've just read, that there are clues in here about the ego that we could understand with, if we could move into those clues deeply, right? The ego is opposite in every way, in origin, effect, and consequence. We can just read this and go, yeah. But we're not still getting it because we're not really entering the text yet. It's what he was sharing with us. So let's assume that there are clues in this book here that will tell us what the ego is. Let's assume that the downloader, who is purported to be Jesus, no necessity you have to believe this at all, but it kind of becomes, for many, clear after a while. Assume that he has a unique perspective, not like anybody else's perspective, not like any other religious perspective, not like any philosophical perspective. It's absolutely unique, and I think it is really unique as a book. Let's assume that the conflicting statements that are in this book, and you will find statements that conflict with your understanding and go, but it said that there and it's saying this here. Assume that these can be harmonized, he said to us. And assume that you need to be open-minded to understand this book. You really have to open your mind up in a new way by, let's just hold off on comparing it with everything else right now. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to actually take a paragraph from the course, which was our homework, and I'll pass it out to you. So are we okay so far?
Yeah.
It's not like anything else that's ever been written any time in history. That's my personal belief. This is directly from the Miracle Ministry Academy, and it's everybody got it? Okay. Because the point that he's trying to get us to is open-mindedness is necessary for understanding this course. We really have to open up the mind wide. We need to be receptive, and we need to be prepared to have our assumptions totally challenged. So, approaching the act of reading with a truly open mind. Masa, would you like to read this?
Sure.
The first one.
Really want to learn something new.
Okay, that's a good place to start, right? Mm-hmm. Are we really wanting to learn something new? Or do we want to have our biases confirmed from previous knowledge and what we already discussed? What are we doing with this, right? And the next one, Masa, please.
Assume that you haven't seen this sentence before. Not really.
That's pretty challenging too. Please carry on.
Okay. Assume he sees things differently than even your best understanding.
Who's he?
Christ?
Yeah, Jesus. Sonia, can you carry on? Be willing?
Be willing to say, I don't know.
Ah, this is a great one. Don't know. It's kind of rare in our culture, isn't it? It's really rare. It's a lot more common in the East. It's like, we lived in Japan all our lives, and it's like, I don't know. Haven't got this yet. I need another 50 years of training to figure out how to clean this sword. Not enough. very serious about, the discipline of whatever you're doing over there. So I don't know. And?
Be willing to say I changed my mind. I had it wrong.
Yeah. 25 years I did that, and it was all wrong. How about that one? That's really wrong. And finally?
Be ultra flexible in your understanding.
Yeah. This idea of being flexible and open-minded is actually later referred to as one of the important talents you have to have as a teacher of this. You have to be very open-minded and very flexible all the time. Like all the time. So we're going to do an exercise. We're going to practice reading with an open mind with the following paragraph from I Need Do Nothing. And if you want to follow in your book, if you got your book, and it's kind of useful to pick up this huge heavy thing and start figuring out what the citations mean, like CET 22V1110. That's telling you that it's from the text. CE means the complete and annotated edition. T means text. 22 means the chapter. And then it's 710. And if you don't have it in your book, you can read it right off here now. And I would like, actually, yourself to read this.
Okay. To do nothing is to rest and make a place within you where the activity of the body ceases to demand attention. Into this place the Holy Spirit comes and there abides. He will remain when you forget, and the body's activities return to occupy your conscious mind. But there will always be this place of rest to which you can return, and you will be more aware of the quiet center of the storm than all its raging activity. This quiet center, in which you do nothing, will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent. From this center, you will be directed how to use the body sinlessly. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it so in your awareness of it.
So that's the section we started off by reading just like normal reading, like you would read any book, and you go, to do nothing is to rest and make a place within you where the activity of the body ceases. And you start to notice as you're reading how you're feeding off of this grid inside of your mind, right? You're reading off the grid. You're comparing it to other things. It's inevitable. You have to try and get a grasp of what it's saying. So we began like that, and then he said, read it very slowly. Read it slowly out loud, which you did, slowly and loud. And then try to see where words are appearing more than once. Because if this text was indeed downloaded from Christ, as some believe, some doubt, then why would words be repeated? It must be a conscious process putting together these words. So what words are repeated?
Rest.
Good. How many times do we have rest? Exactly. So the word rest comes up 3 times. Now, we wouldn't normally notice that, would we? We'd just go through it, we'd read it, and we'd figure that we got it. But he's used the word rest 3 times. And it can be a verb to rest, but rest itself, what is the condition of rest? It comes up 3 times. So I think that word is important. How about the word, any other word that comes up more than once, Regan?
Awareness or aware.
Which one did you find?
Aware and awareness.
Yep. Any others that you can see repeating?
Quiet.
Okay. How many times did quiet appear?
Twice.
Right. So quiet gets emphasized, rest gets emphasized, and
Center. 4.
good. Yeah. So that's a really important one to get. Center comes up like for a short passage like this. How many times was it?
4.
That's like telling us something like, okay, there's a center. There's some kind of center within us that we don't really know about, but it has something to do with deep rest. And if we can get there, what happens? But there are more words that are repeated. There's another one that comes up 3 times, I think. Any ideas on that?
Nothing.
Nothing comes up twice, yeah, I think it's twice. How about body? I think it's something like 3 body, 3 center, 2 or 3 remain, nothing, 3 places, 3 rests, and 2 quiet. All of these words were repeated in a very, very short paragraph. So we need to pay attention to those words. That's what Robert counseled us to do when we read it one more time. Right? So let's do it one more time, and each time those words that repeat themselves come up, try and get a feeling of where that connects us to the state that he's talking about, the condition that he's referring to. And how about Regan? Would you like to please read it again, slowly, carefully, and out loud?
To do nothing is to rest and make a place within you where the activity of the body ceases to demand attention. Into this place the Holy Spirit comes and there abides. He will remain when you forget, and the body's activities return to occupy your conscious mind. But there will always be this place of rest to which you can return. And you will be more aware of the quiet center of the storm than all its raging activity. This quiet center in which you do nothing will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent. For from this center will you be directed how to use the body sinlessly. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it so in your awareness of it.
Now, from a modern individual's point of view, anybody who's been educated today, this is kind of ridiculous, right? Like, pick 10 people off the street and have them read this and what? The body is absent? What? Where have you read that anywhere? Where have you been taught that anywhere? Who's ever said that in any church or mosque that you've been in? It's like, this is radical. But could it be true? Right? That's the real question. If this is true, that there is in fact a place where you can have this rest, and I'm thinking about my daughter here who's going through a lot of physical pain, like every day. And yet she has been able to find that place and stay in it for sometimes minutes at a time, right? And that's why this is a laboratory, because we're actually experimenting with this. When your body is demanding all of your attention, and the body and the ego are a set in this book, right? It's a set. It's a setup. The body, the ego, this thing which is temporal and disappears and dies and it's all over. And what he's saying here is basically, that's not true at all. Because if you do nothing and you can rest and find this place inside of you, and that's why this prayer at the beginning was so important, the holy instant, to find that instant or that moment where you can switch, maybe shift into that. And suddenly Give your example of when you were in the forest the other day. What happened?
I had no pain. Well,
Well, tell us what happened before you went into the forest.
I was in a lot of pain and a lot of fear and was all over the place in my mind. And I prayed and I went into the forest and I wasn't in pain. So I had a holy instant. But before that, I was looking at the trees and how the light was coming through the trees, and I was having a conversation with my husband, and I was fully in that moment, and I wasn't thinking about everything hurting. So that was a holy instant.
So, okay, you could say, well, that's just one example. Anybody else having these experiences? Well, definitely. Definitely. Maybe only for 25 seconds. But if it can be possible for 25 seconds, it can be possible for 25 minutes. And if it can be possible for 25 minutes, it can be possible for 24 hours. But whoa, haven't met too many people who've been able to do that, right? But at least we are being brought to the place where we can, if we're open-minded and we sit here and go, okay, right? Doesn't make any sense logically because we are bodies. We are bodies. That's who we are. We're bodies, right? And he's saying completely different thing, contradicting everything that you've ever been taught or believed, right here in one paragraph. It's basically the whole book is in here, in a sense, because it's like holographic. You can go to any chapter, any section, and you'll find something that shakes you up. And if you're really serious about understanding it, you have to sit back and go, wait a minute, why would the author or the downloader say this to us? Why? And so the answer, one answer you can come up with is, because it's probably true. It's probably true. And if it's true, wow, what does that mean? Maybe I can experiment with this. And so we've been experimenting, and especially Masa has been experimenting with how to deal with atrocious pain every day. They drive most people completely out of their heads. You can't escape from it. The body is demanding your attention all day. You got cancer, you're in pain, suffer, baby. But there's another way to approach it. And that's what this book is showing us. There's another way to approach it. So she's the great experimenter, in my opinion, because, you know, I've got a few challenges. We've all got a few challenges, but her ones have been completely assisted because she's studying this course every day. Completely assisted. I don't want to use the word magic because no, it's not magic. That's a miracle, right? That's a kind of a miraculous occurrence. So I went through this also, and I'm going, okay, I've read it 3 times, and I noted 2 quiets, 3 rest, 3 places, 2 nothing, 2 remain, 3 centers, and 3 body. But then he asks us the question, and this is a bit of an exercise for all of us. We should be writing it actually, but here's the question. Okay, here's the question. This was our homework. What does it mean to do nothing? And what are the internal results of doing nothing? Just from what you've read so far, and you've still got it in front of you, so maybe spend 2 or 3 minutes just writing down the answer to this very straight question. What does it mean to do nothing? And what are the internal results of doing nothing? Based only on what you have read.
try, but my pen doesn't work on it.
Because I'm terrible at remembering things. What does it really mean to do nothing? What are the internal results? Maybe even make like 3 or 4 points. To do nothing means, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is the key thing that connects to doing nothing? Looking back over that section. What did you come up with, Barb?
To do nothing, rest, no activity, stop being busy, move into a quiet center. The benefits is rest and peace, awareness.
What does it allow us to do if we can actually do that, right? To rest.
What does it allow us to do? I mean, I just think rest.
I think if we are able to rest, like it has here, then you can make a place within yourself. So to me it was like you create a spot. Like it's like you make your body kind of invisible, not important. It's not there. There's no attention to the body. And then you can create a place, since here for the Holy Spirit to live. And I think when you're in a place like that, then you're able to learn.
That was a really important point. You're making a place for the Holy Spirit to kind of live in you. That's a huge radical idea. I mean, like making a space for somebody to move in. Mm-hmm. Wow. We used to call that flitting. You're going to flit, right? Move house. But, whoa, you're making a space inside of you, like an altar kind of place where you can have the Holy Spirit come in and live. That's a hugely radical idea. I mean, I didn't find that anywhere in the Bible. Not that clearly. Not that simply. I wasn't reading it properly. There you go. It was probably in there, right?
So I don't see lives. Is that
Abide.
what you're taking from
Abides. Yes. Good point. See, I just made that up. I changed it into lives. Looking up here. Oh, it's lives. It's not lives. It's abides. So they're going to nail us on every single occasion when we go like this. And, nope, that's not what it said. Very good. Abides, which is it's a different meaning in English from lives, right? To abide. What does that suggest, right? Actually, we use the word bide in Scotland a lot. Bide in your house. Stay in your house, right? Bide in your house. Bide in your house a delun, right? Stay, remain, don't go anywhere else. Bide, right? That's great. If that could be done, if you could create such a space for the Holy Spirit to come and abide, and we can always return to this place. That's kind of a promise, right? We can return to this place if we make the effort to actually create it.
Quieten your mind and observe the mind. And eventually you get to the place, maybe for a few seconds, kind of awaken. It becomes one. No delay by the thoughts. Just so you are here, you are. Right? Without the mind disappears. That's maybe.
Yeah, it says, you need to be quiet so that Holy Spirit can abide, and thereby we can hear.
What will happen to us if we can do that? There's something more that we haven't discussed yet. What will actually happen if we can carry out that? It's closer to the end. It says that we can use the body sinlessly, right? And this is a huge loaded word in every religious tradition, you know.
Yeah.
Sinlessly. But it's got a whole different understanding of sin in this. Doesn't happen. It's not there. I think here maybe the word purely might work better, but it's not saying purely, it's saying sinlessly, so let's look at that, right? So that was the first part of the exercise, and maybe we've already got a bit of a feeling of, I wasn't reading it before, and I certainly wasn't reading it before. I was just going, da-da-da-da-da, got it, closed the book, did my practice for today, now I'm off for a coffee. And that's not how the people who are running this organization do it at all. I couldn't believe it when Masa told me that these people have got their watches going off every 15 minutes to remind them what the lesson for the day is in the workbook. Wait, I mean, I write it on my hand and I get through the first hour, and then it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, I forgot my hand. What was the lesson again? I get to the end of the day. Oh, I didn't do it at all. So they make sure, and they got their watches going. I heard this from us. These people are a little bit extreme. Like, they're doing the workbook after 40 years, every 15 minutes. What kind of people are these? And the answer is very serious, dedicated people. Because they know that the ego is the ultimate trickster in the entire galaxy. And will spin you right around and put you back where you started, and you think you'll understand, but you haven't understood anything at all. Because you didn't do the work. You didn't do it every day. You certainly didn't do it every 15 minutes. So by coming to these people, I've been like, wow, finally some serious dudes around this. This is very good practice. So I'm beginning to get the idea that I'm not reading it properly, and I'm not doing enough work with the workbook. And I think that reading is the key. So, as you can see, I haven't really moth-eaten this one enough. It hasn't been read so much. It's been older books. It's been books about this book. Like, how many of you read books about, the Course in Miracles in 15, easy, or there are so many books about the Course in Miracles, and there are so many teachers, and they're all saying they've all got a different approach. And Robert said they are all actually programming your mind with their understanding of the Course, not what's actually in the Course itself. So that gave me the idea, I better stop reading what other people are saying about this Course, and I better just start reading the Course. Just that. Doesn't matter how great they are and how entertaining they are. This is what we're supposed to be studying, not somebody's interpretation of it. So let's go on. Here's the next question. See if we can get something out of the same passage. Does doing nothing conflict with being active in the world? Please elaborate on your answer. And again, based on the passage. There must be somewhere in this paragraph that alerts us to the answer, which is, once again, does doing nothing conflict with being active in the world, which is a common understanding, in many traditions. They had leave the world, be in your cave, nothing to do with the world. Is that true here?
Well, if you cease your attention on the activity of the body and find that place of rest, you can still engage with the world while the Holy Spirit abides within you.
That's a nice answer from us, but where does it say in the text?
Well, I'm taking what it's saying in the first sentence and trying to apply what you asked. Like, can you engage? Do you have to? That was a question I actually had. Like, do I have to go sit in a mountaintop and be a monk in order to get this? Right? But if you are engaging with the world, like in the center of the hurricane, is that what it said? In the storm, you can still engage, but not from the place of relating to yourself as the body and its experience. Okay, that's my answer, but I don't know.
I'm looking again. There must
It's
be.
not
No, there is,
is
actually.
there an answer in here?
There is.
Oh.
There actually is. Barb?
Well, I'm looking at number 6. This quiet center in which you do nothing will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent.
Okay.
It's in here,
It is.
right? So you get it now?
Yes.
There's your way of understanding it, and then that's what it actually says is different. He would not be saying that he knows that you're going to have busy doings on which you are sent, right? Otherwise, why would he say it? So that means activity, right? That means doing stuff, that means working, talking, whatever we have to do. But it's actually in the text, which is why he asked the question so clearly. And I think it took me about 20 minutes to find this, because I wasn't looking properly, right? I was just, I got it.
I think 7 elaborates on it a little bit more too.
Oh, please tell us, what is that?
For from the center,
The
quiet center,
yeah.
you will be directed how to use the body sinlessly.
You will be directed to use, no, wait a minute, who's the director around here?
Holy Spirit.
Right? But, so just from reading this, the Holy Spirit is in here, right?
Yeah.
Into this place the Holy Spirit comes and there abides. So the Holy Spirit is the one who's going to be sending you to do these things in the world from that quiet center, because the Holy Spirit is in that center, is the sense it makes to me anyway.
And I read that we're it seems pretty clear that we're not the body. So it's like from our true self, being something, we're using the body in the world. But the body isn't us. It's just kind of a vehicle or something.
Yeah, because it says use the body sinlessly. Like it's this form that we're just using.
Right.
Yeah, then you get the real big question, who's using it? Who's the one using it?
The controller.
I was talking with John Mundy, who was one of the very first people to be with Helen Schuckman at the beginning. He's now in his mid-80s. He's one of the more prominent teachers. I interviewed him, and he had 2 experiences that really changed him. He had some form of, brain fever, mosquito bite, something like encephalitis. So he was in a coma for a week, And this is decades into being, a teacher of A Course in Miracles, but he didn't have a body because he was in a coma. And he said he remembered waking up and looking at his hand and going, wow, what's that? Not as a body, right? What's this thing? And then he started naming everything. Oh, fingers, toes, knees. And then he said to me during the interview, and what was the first thing that Adam did? He made a name for everything, right? And naming everything is the first step in separation. Because if you've got a name for everything, it has to be separate from everything else, right? So that kind of connects language to how the ego operates using words, names, things, bits and pieces that are not connected at all, right? I'm not a chair, except if you look at the subatomic level. So look how much we got out of this already. And some people are reading like 5 pages of this a day. That's what it means. Whoa! No wonder it took me 20 years to figure this out. I was doing that all the time. And really thought I was getting it. Which is why I quit and I came back and I quit and I came back. Why would you keep coming back to something that didn't make sense? That's the real question, I think, for myself, right? Why would you keep doing this? Come on. Why would you batter yourself so much if it had no meaning and no import? Because I think it really does have something to say, and reading this section helped me a lot. And we have one more question, if you're ready and willing. Based strictly on this paragraph, what does I need do nothing mean? And what does it not mean? That's a good one to finish with, isn't it? Right? What does I need do nothing mean? And that's the whole section is about I need do nothing, right? What does that mean? And what does it not mean? And I thought that was really kind of a very good question, taking the negative too. What does it not mean? And that really made me think. And probably do that for all of us. So let's go over it again. And it doesn't have to be a long sentence, what does it mean and what does it not mean, but I think we have to go into it again and figure it out. The second part of the question is really interesting because it's what does it not mean is forcing ourselves to give our own opinions, right? We have to figure out what it doesn't mean. It's not necessarily going to be in the text itself. We have to figure out what it doesn't mean.
So
Vis-a-vis our normal understanding of things. I believe that's what it's asking me to do, because he doesn't actually say here, it doesn't mean this, that, and the next thing. That's not here, right? Anywhere. So this is really a question at the very end for us to look at how we commonly would understand we need do nothing and actually compare it to what is being said here about doing nothing. And that challenges me to, okay.
when it refers to the body, does that mean the mind too, or is that separate from the body?
It's very clear here that it's this, yeah.
It's just the flesh.
It's the meatloaf,
flesh
yeah.
and bone,
Yeah.
not the mind.
No.
Okay.
And there are no really right or wrong answers to the last part, but it just makes you think. Our common understanding of doing nothing, what it says here about doing nothing.
Well, to do nothing is to rest
Mm.
and to not be engaged with what the body's doing, the activity of the body.
would it be like to receive what the Holy Spirit is directing the body to do? To do nothing would be activating your receiver.
What would it not be? For me, that's the real tricky question. Why did he even ask this question? What does it not mean?
Well, it doesn't mean don't do anything. Like, we still have to function.
Exactly. This is where he's trying to get us to, is to compare it to your normal understanding of doing nothing, which is,
Yeah, like
Right.
don't work, don't go out, don't do anything.
right? It doesn't mean that, right? It doesn't mean that you're lying on the sofa there, dreaming away. It's kind of forcing us to take our common understanding and put it up against this. So, personally, my own opinion of this was, it does not mean to apathetically expect miracles to happen just because you're doing nothing. If you read it lightly and go, oh, if I do nothing, the Holy Spirit will come in and it'll be miracles. Will be. It doesn't mean that. Of course not. It doesn't mean to just sit back and wait for everything to come to you through total inaction. To use the body sinlessly clearly means action from quiet. To use the body sinlessly means to have action coming out of quietness. But it certainly doesn't mean to be apathetic. That was what I noticed myself. How about you? Anything about not what it doesn't mean?
I said it doesn't mean not living in the world.
Exactly, yeah. Doesn't mean not living in the world. And so that was what we studied on Saturday, and I sent in my homework just like you did, and the whole thing took about this amount of time. And well, what do I think about it now? What do you think about it now? Having read it in maybe a different way from the way that we normally read the book or read the text, what comes up for you? What did it spark in you, having done this exercise? And we'll start with Barb, I think, over here.
Well, I guess my message is to slow it down. Like, I'm going through the book now. We started in January, and we're on chapter 20. So to me, that seems really slow.
Oh, you started in January.
Did we start in January? Is that
I
right?
jumped in later.
Yeah.
I think
So
you did start in January.
So to me, it's like, okay, go slower. Like I'll spend maybe about 2 hours reading a chapter, but
You spent 2 hours?
yeah,
Wow.
like I do it, and then I do the commentaries, and I study it with the teachers on the website. But you could spend 2 hours doing this, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, my message is just
Yeah.
even go slower.
You don't have to read the whole book to get it. That's one of the messages I got, because it's a tremendous enterprise to sit down and read this from end to end. I mean, you don't have to read it all to get the benefit from it. I think I could say that. I mean, just this one here, if we really spent some serious time in this one paragraph, it could start a lot of interesting things inside of you, right? If you were open-minded, and remember we started this by saying you have to be open-minded if you're gonna get this, and it challenges the idea of what is an open mind then, right? Wow, was I really open-minded when I read it last time? Nope. Got to read it again, and
That's a good point what you made now and earlier about, did you use the word holograph?
yeah, it's a holographic
Like it's
book.
so dense,
Yeah,
you could take a section like this,
Yeah.
and you'll come across it again and again, but you can just really spend time there and get,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So it
exponential.
takes the pressure off of me, like, I gotta read like 18 chapters by next Friday, as if that would connect to understanding. That's just a huge assumption, right? Just by reading it. So,
Say if you get one sentence or one piece of this entire book in your lifetime, you've made a jump.
Yeah.
Yikes.
No, but that's also a relief too, right? Like we don't have to like get it all.
Yeah.
I find like when I'm reading it, I like logically like I don't really understand, but like there's something so like a resonant like understanding in the body of like that makes perfect sense. Like it's not like I feel like, oh, I know this and I get it. Like my mind doesn't, can't really comprehend it, but there's this like real knowing inside kind of.
Yeah, I understand that feeling when you know that you're onto something, but you don't really know what it is. But there's something in there, like you said, resonates with you. And yeah, just keeps you coming back.
I thought it was interesting how we actually referred to the passage itself for the answer.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's so easy to just, interpret from acquired knowledge over time. That was an interesting practice to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Robert is, I personally, I've met a lot of scientists and researchers around the world and interviewed loads of them. And I've never met anybody with that kind of a sharp, analytical approach to the text and absolutely holding fast to it. I'm not going to put my opinion in there anywhere. Because if this book really came from where they say it came from, how can you be so bold as to think that your interpretation is going to be right and this is going to be wrong? Like you got to have a massive ego just to think that, right? Nah, he got that one wrong, but this bit maybe is okay, but nah. So it's like all in or all out. Again, we come back to this place with this book. It's all in or all out. It's either true or it's not. And if it's true, what was it that guy said? The guy Pascal, the was French philosopher. He was a bit of an atheist, but he was kind of on the edge. And I think he said something like, okay, well, let's pretend that God really exists. If that was the case, well then, how would my life be different, right? Let's just think about that for a minute. And rather than just say, nah, it's not happening. And that opened up his mind, right? He was a great scientist. So, like, just a little bit, this text is always saying to us, just a little bit of openness you need for this book. You just need to be a little bit open to it, and it'll come crashing in the front door, and it'll start downloading stuff on you. Like, wow, never thought about that.
So was this originally in English? It was downloaded in English.
Oh yeah, and it's iambic pentameter. What is it called? Iambic pentameter. Which is akin to how Shakespeare wrote. So
it's been translated?
No.
This
is the original words, absolutely.
So
as
when it gets translated into other languages,
Oh.
does it lose it?
In Japanese, as our friend that tried to translate, not that one, not that one, the original translation.
Foundation and Peace.
Yeah, and somebody else tried. So there are two books exist, and I don't think that this Atonement, this book, won't be translated into Japanese.
Oh, we're hoping
it
it
must
won't.
change.
Actually,
the words are different.
no,
the
actually,
meanings.
that's a very good question. But we are professional translators, and I read it every day in English and Japanese. First, I read it in Japanese. And it's even better that way because I have to pay more attention. Reading English, it's easy to kind of go, I get it. But in another language, it's a lot harder to go, I get it. And so I go again and again through the Japanese. And most mornings, I go, I'm going to have to check it with English to make sure that I really got it. Even though Japanese is my language, right? It's my second language. So, I mean, I dream in Japanese, I speak it really well. So I can read this stuff and I still don't get it. So then I go, okay. But what's written in Japanese is very faithfully translated from what's in English. I can tell you that for sure. Because it goes through numerous checks by the people who are in the organization. And in fact, the copy that our friend translated was refused later by the Blue Book, ACIM, by the Foundation for Inner Peace. They said that. And so his one was kind of relegated, right? But Robert did say that the translator's interpretations can be extremely dangerous. He said that. So it takes a long time to get these books translated, and we're already talking about translating this one. It's like, we're going to need... No, not you. No, not you. No.
Myself.
Not you.
I've been working on the letting go.
She's still working on letting go. Let it go.
Is that the first one out of the trilogy? Is that the first one?
And Power Versus Force, it's I did it how many times, you know, and then they republish it over and over. And today I've been working on like 100 words on the letting go, and I realize my body gets sweat. What I translated wasn't right. You know, I have to really understand. Otherwise, you just can't translate these books. It's too deep. And at the beginning, the editor is written. It's incredible work. It's trying to put the word in something you cannot express. And exactly that's what I am experiencing. And I thought today, like, just let it go.
Let it go.
Somebody else to take over.
It's a big responsibility.
Do you ask the Holy Spirit to help you when you're translating?
Yeah, I have a Dr. Hawkins picture right next to me.
Yeah.
And he's been talking to me quite a few times, and he said, make it simple as possible so even the young people can understand. So that's what the message I got from him.
Do you muscle test too when you translate? Do you do your own muscle testing when you translate?
Muscle testing, yeah.
Do you do it? Because when he writes a sentence, he'll muscle test his sentence to see. Yeah. And do you do the same when you translate?
We did it together with Power Versus Force. We did it page by page.
The translated version of Power Versus Forces was higher than the original English, so we called him, and he answered the telephone right away, and he said because the Japanese language itself has a higher
vibration than the English language, which actually makes sense, being thousands of years older.
Yeah.
But yeah, the English is directly, and because Helen Schuckman was a very, in a sense, left-brained, well-read Shakespearean, really loved Shakespeare, it came down as like Shakespearean verse through her. And there are words in there that we don't use anymore. But for that you would something, like what does that mean? That's not the usual. It's not the same use of but, right? So it takes a bit of getting used to, but I find it extremely beautiful English compared to what we're normally. So anything else about reading? What have you got?
Well, I'm going to start to really pay attention to repeated words.
Yeah. Like you could do an exercise. Like, how many times did he say that? Must be an important idea. Yeah, it really floored me, that lesson. It was like, hit me broadside. And I told him, because I talked to him the day after, I said, that one really thumped right into me, like I haven't been doing it right. And I understand why he's teaching us to do it this way, because, this is my first time teaching it. I'm being very careful not to apply, connections with other traditions, whether they be East or West. You don't need it. You don't need to connect it with any philosophy or any other religion. It's all in here in one book, right? Which is easily enough for an entire lifetime to read. And you still probably won't get it. And he himself said after 40 years, nobody understands this book. He was very clear. Nobody.
It doesn't mean
Whoa!
it doesn't mean just because you don't understand it doesn't mean
No, it
you
doesn't
can't
mean that.
receive
No.
incredible benefit.
Yeah, it
Doesn't mean-
works. It's practical.
Doesn't mean that at
It's
all, yeah.
totally, I just have to say that I got this today
You did?
in a complete meltdown in the forest.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was actually crying for help,
Oh, okay.
freaking out, just going through like a total chaotic state, and I got, be quiet.
Mm.
And I stopped, and I actually laid on the ground, and
Mm.
I stayed there.
Mm.
And I just looked at the snow falling, and it like completely calmed me down. And I just, when I was reading this, I was just like, oh my God, this is the same message I got today. So that to me is a miracle.
Mm. Yeah, it's when it really counts and you get it. That's it kind of nails it home. But I think at the beginning of the course, correct me if I'm wrong, it says you don't have to believe this and you don't have to understand it.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
The very beginning. No necessity to believe it at all. No necessity to even understand it. Just try and do it. Just read it. See what happens, right? And that's where we need to be open-minded enough to just go, okay, maybe it's worth carrying on reading it. And that's why we're doing this laboratory, to just figure out what it does for us, really. Does it really work? And
Well, it's been my big experiment. I signed up to try it. I thought, well, I'm going to try this on, and I'm just going to really commit and give it my all. But I'm, pretty convinced. Yeah, I can't imagine not doing it.
Did it take you a long time to get convinced, or?
I don't know. I mean, it's almost like you're explaining it. It works in the moment. Like you can be in the moment and just have these holy instants, and then you forget. So, you just keep doing it over and over, and you keep having the holy instants, and that's just enough. I don't want to use the word addiction.
Like a drug. You forget.
It's
there though.
Yeah.
It stays in, and when it's necessary, it comes back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just something that works. So it's like the 12-step meetings keep coming back. It works.
Well, I love that the basis of this is also about forgiveness. So, like, when I forget, a lot of the times, to try and remember to forgive the part, the forgetting, and to be grateful. And we have these little snippets of, like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and in the last, it's been 2 years now, but there's definitely milestones in my life. Like there are things I knew before I took the course. I thought, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this and see what happens. So one of them is I would have anxiety attacks, usually in the middle of the night. I'd wake up and my breath would
oh, wow.
like I would just feel anxious and my brain would start to spin. And that was pretty much my norm throughout my life. There's been phases when it wouldn't happen, but they're gone. It's probably within the last year. I
Wow.
just don't have that anymore. I just don't have that.
That's a pretty
Anxiety.
serious result.
Yeah, like that.
Wow.
My peace level is just come way down. Do you want to? Can you validate any of that?
You see that cup over there? What's it say on that one? What's it say on that cup?
Open a book and open your mind.
Oh wow!
Dollarama. That's a Dollarama. Made in China.
Nice one, Tony.
The
Yeah.
whole world, that book is so around the world. It's only one subject they're reading out of a book. Any subject, but the most important, it's opening your mind, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's that's not as complicated as you're doing, but that's what it is.
Yes.
Let me write that down.
Perfect.
Open a book.
Yeah. But I'm not one of your students. I'm just a.
He's the Holy Spirit.
Oh, you're the. No, the cat's the Holy Spirit. So that's what we're attempting to do in this lab, is to experiment, see if it works, If it works, then carry on, do another experiment. And anybody can do an experiment any day. And Masa's the great experimenter because she's
No, don't. It's everybody.
it's everybody, but she's the one that I look to see if it's working or not. Because if it can work here, well, you've got problems, right? Okay, it can work with relationships, it can work with jobs, it can work with animals, it can work with anything. Surely, if you have this quiet place inside you where the Holy Spirit abides, not going anywhere. And in fact, as we study the Course, we find out it never went anywhere from the very start. It was always there. It's not like it came in one day because you said hi. It's always been there, right at the center of your being. And the fact that you didn't know that is because you have an ego. And so you mentioned Alcoholics Anonymous, and we could start our meetings in the future with, my name is John and I'm an ego, right? Because that's the truth. And
my name is John and I'm the Holy Son of God.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
I
good
left
one.
my ego at the door.
If only, right? But no other book has taken the ego apart as brilliantly as this. I can finish with that. No psychology or philosophy or any other book ever has nailed the ego so clearly to the wall for what it is as this book. And that's why people don't continue to do the Course in Miracles. Right?
Because they don't want to give up.
Because they don't want to give up their ego. So that in itself is a testament to how powerful this book is. No. Putting it down. Because it's constantly pointing at this ego and going, so of course you want to put it down. Of course you want to quit. But a really nice spiritual book with all the feely goodies, you're going to be in there from morning till night, aren't you? Because it's feeding your ego and you're going to be enlightened in 3 more lessons. Right? Doesn't happen with this. Nobody gets enlightened. There's no stories like that. It's an ego-crushing book. So, with that wonderful ending, we'll say anything else?
No.
Well, I just want to add that I've been hugely, hugely triggered by some of the content in this book.
Trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like taking responsibility for sickness and all that stuff. But I recognize I'm like, okay, if I'm like so triggered to the point where I'm like this and this is all bullshit and I'm gonna go to quantum instead. That's way easier. Just imagine myself whole and that feels a lot better. But when I actually dissected all of that, like I got something important out of it. So yeah, you may be triggered.
Oh, you will be triggered.
Warning,
You will be
trigger
triggered.
warning.
So that's it for today. I'm going to go to the toilet and maybe have some more tea. Yeah.
Thanks, Steph.
Yeah, well, thank you. That
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
That was great.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Great first lesson.